So thank you to everybody for joining us. This is our last P2P roundtable webinar series. This is our recap, and just want to welcome you to our 7th, and like I said, our last episode of achieving amazing results through partner collaboration within the ecosystem. This webinar series that we've had helped you to understand why partner-to-partner relationships are important for the success of your business. And P2P is becoming more and more important because more companies are adopting the partner ecosystem model. So today we're going to discuss putting it all together. Recap to faster sales, bigger deals, and higher close rates with Anoop Nathwani, Director of Strategic Alliances at Consortio Consulting Limited and co-founder of the Alliance Accelerator. So the webinars will be recorded and posted on the P2P collaboration LinkedIn page. Now, a few partner-to-partner roundtable rules of engagement. Attendees are encouraged to join the roundtable discussion. Use the reaction features, raise hand to indicate when you'd like to speak. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking, and chat is also available for questions and comments. Next, Gary. So real quick, I'm Dee Dee Haz. I'm a channel strategist, practitioner, and coach for DLH Services. I have been in the channel a long time, and I help companies stand up their channel programs. Gary?
I'm Gary Lamb, and I'm the founder of Kokua Consulting Group. I work with Salesforce partners to build effective messaging and engagement with Salesforce, and my friends call me the Salesforce Partner Whisperer. On to you, Norma.
Thank you. I'm Norma Wattenbaugh. I'm CEO of Phoenix Consulting Group. We specialize in helping companies find more strategic value in their most important relationships. We help design and deploy and optimize partner ecosystems. And it is my honor to introduce my longtime friend and colleague, Anoop Nathwani, who's joining us and has joined many of our sessions. So we thought it was perfect to have him come in and help do a recap of what we've talked about and tying the whole series of how to achieve better, faster sales, bigger deals, tying it all together. So Anoop is a highly entrepreneurial and business-centric senior alliance and partnerships professionals with over 25 years in the area. He has extensive experience in driving groundbreaking strategic business development initiatives and spans a number of industry verticals. And 15 years in telecommunications with companies such as Vodafone, Hutchison, and Nokia, to name a few, or Nokia, I guess, get my pronunciation. And a strategy thought leader in driving best practices and center of excellences for Nokia, as well as operational execution. He's co-author of a published strategy paper on the impact and motivations on alliance, a topic that's not been covered before. And he's also past president of the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals UK chapter. So welcome, Anoop. We really appreciate your contributions and conversation today.
Thank you, Norma. Delighted to be on.
So why don't I go ahead and kick off the conversation? Our first session was leading with designing a solution, meeting a customer need, through a partner ecosystem. And one of the lead-offs we used was a quote from Steve Jobs that was essentially start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. Do you think this also plays when we're talking about partners, especially when we're talking about ecosystem solutions?
I certainly do. I'm a very firm believer that you see a lot of companies who say we need to partner, and I can quite often ask them the question, why? Yeah, what is the value that you're creating? Because you have to actually think about what is it that you're providing, what your customer needs are, or your group of customers needs are, or in fact, the intended user of the solution is going to want to use this for. And it's based on that you got to think about putting the customer at the very, very center of what it is you're trying to do, and then working with the partner or partners to create the solution that goes around it. So it's got to be driven that way. Because I'm a firm believer in this whole thing. You know, I've heard a lot of people say partnering is about win-win, and I challenge them on that to say you've missed something there. You've got to think about the win-win-win, and the most important win of all is the win for the customer or the user of the solution that you're trying to create. Because if you're not creating a win for them, they're not going to buy anything. So where's the win-win-win gone? It's gone nowhere. So I think you have to put the customers at the very, very center of what you're doing in order then to partner with either through a bilateral partnership or through an ecosystem, because they have a problem, you're trying to solve that problem, and that's what you need to be thinking about. Technology is there as an enabler more than anything else to achieve what you need to do, but you have to think about the customer needs.
Absolutely. I think, I think the phrase we use often is if you don't have the customer in the center, you don't have an ecosystem, you have an ecosystem.
Correct. Absolutely correct. Yes, correct.
So to that point, when you want to go to market as an ecosystem, how do you assemble the right partners? What do you look for?
Well, I think what needs to happen when you look to, because first, before you look to go to market, you have to kind of create the solution, right? You've got to find the right set of partners, and there's several ways of actually doing that. I think the first thing you need to take a look at is, there's a customer need or there's a solution that the customer wants. What you need to be thinking about is, what is it that you as a company bring to the solution? What gaps do you have? Right? And then based on the gaps that you have, who are the potential partners you can look at to kind of who have the capability to fill that gap? And then once you've actually done that, you need to go through a proper assessment of the right partners. I see too many scenarios of companies saying they meet with people at a conference and just say, you know what, we can make great partners. Why don't we do this together? And it's a recipe for disaster, right? I think what needs to be done is you need to do the right kind of assessment and go through a proper partner assessment to find the right partner. And this assessment needs to be based on kind of what's a strategic fit? And strategic fit is also, do they have the right product or solution that kind of meets the needs that you have, the gaps that you have? You need to go through kind of an operational fit around how do they operate, how do we operate? And it may not be identical, may not be very well aligned, but you need to understand if there's huge differences, why the differences are there, you need to manage it. And then there's a cultural piece as well, because you need to make sure you're not going to get complete cultural alignment, but culturally you want to see some kind of coming together a bit. And on top of that, what you want to do is create that third culture. You want to create the culture of the partnership with the ecosystem, which is your own culture from that perspective. But you need to see it kind of coming together. So that's kind of assessment that you need to do. Go through kind of needs and contributions, find out where the gaps are, and then zoom in, narrow it down to the types of partners, and then zoom in down even more and go through a proper assessment.
I think many ways that assessment it's not that you're going to have a partner that checks every box or even, some number of boxes. It in many ways is a risk assessment process, right?
Correct.
Like you've got different cultures that might not deter you from partnering if the strategic alignment's there.
Correct.
But at least what you're dealing with, right?
Correct. That's right. And I think the important thing there is the way you do a partner assessment is you'd go through a scoring mechanism as opposed to a tick box. And through the scoring mechanism, where the score is low, where you score your partner low, etc., you'd actually put in a plan to say, I know that's a problem. I know it's going to be a problem. It's going to come and bite me if I'm not careful. What do I need to do in play to try and improve that score? Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing, being aware of it and putting a plan in place so that it doesn't disrupt what it is you're trying to do.
So we have a small group here, so we're open to conversation here. If folks have something they want to contribute or a question to ask as we go along here.
Yeah, and you can also put questions in the chat as well, and I'll be
Yeah,
monitoring that.
We'll field as many as we can in the chat box if you have a question. All right. So you identified a customer issue you want to address. You assembled your partners that you want to go to market to address that. How do you go about winning the deal? How do you go to, actually engage with customers as an ecosystem?
So I think what needs to happen is you need to, in an ecosystem, you need to find out, is someone going to step up to be an orchestrator? And quite often that orchestrator is the person who has either the most robust solution or has the eye of the potential set of clients or the industry sector. And they have, they're seen as kind of a trusted advisor within that industry sector, within the group of customers that you're actually looking at. And that's what you need to take a look at, is be very, very open and transparent within your ecosystem to say who's going to step up and take a kind of lead or an orchestrator type role, because that organization is going to want to kind of build the right kind of trusted advisor relationship with the particular clients or customers that you're looking at, etc. So that's important. The other thing that needs to be done to win the deal, to create the deal, to create the agreement, etc., is you've got to build up trust and relationship between the partners. Now, in a bilateral partnership, it's a little easier, but when you have an ecosystem, it becomes much more complex. You're dealing with a number of organizations. Some are actually in competition with you. And I think what you need to kind of do is build up that trusted relationship in such a way you're saying, we are going to do this together. It's, we have to do it together because there are needs coming from the customer, which we collectively can win. And I think going back to your point, Norma, is taking the ego out of it and putting the eco in it and actually talking about it as a we, as opposed to a me or an I. And it's that whole language thing that needs to change such that you can actually do that. And it's also taking out, if there's any kind of conflict that comes into play, etc., it's actually finding a way around that conflict, because I'm sure there will be conflict in the kind of ecosystem. It's kind of understanding where that conflict is and how can you smoothen it out. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go on.
So how do you, well, let's just say, what is one good way to get the ego out of there and put the ego in, like you said, or partner to partner trust?
So I think there's a really good way is it all starts with the relationship. It's all about getting the particular ecosystem partners together and saying, but leave. You're working for an organization. Leave that outside the door. Come in the room and start talking about us collectively as to what we're going to do collectively. Yeah, and that's kind of the very first thing to do, because I think we always say alliances and partnerships are kind of developed by organizations but implemented by people. So it's the people that are going to do it, and I think it's those relationships that are going to do it. And one of the easy ways as well is getting people into a meeting and actually kicking off a meeting, talking about not about business, but actually talking about personal lives, right? So it's building up that relationship piece. I think that's critically important, because partnering is a relationship-based business. Yeah, and from that perspective, it's actually bringing that relationship together with the other partners, the other parties that you need. It's critically important.
I think it's also about having realistic expectations, because so many of these, you're dealing with competitors as you go to market. And it's a clear understanding that at the end of the day, you might have a common objectives with respect to this one opportunity, but you kind of have to know where the swim lanes are, right? This is where you can expect to cooperate. This is where you're going to end up competing, and understanding that that's that's what it is.
Correct. Correct. It's putting a boundary around it, isn't it, Norma? It's
Yeah.
it's actually
Putting it in the swim lane.
particularly in a competition arena. You need to, and I've done this before many times with companies that you compete with. What you have to do is you have to put a boundary around to say, this is the area where we're going to collaborate, because there's huge opportunity. There's a lot of value that we can create together, but there's areas we're going to compete, and being very clear that we do compete in these areas, but we collaborate in these areas. And I think that's important.
And in particular, when we're talking about winning the deal, getting in front of customers, it's got to be very clear so you don't air the dirty laundry in front of the customer.
Correct. I think Nancy's got a question, isn't she?
I do. Hi, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Depending
Hi,
on
Nancy.
who you are.
Hey, Nancy.
And thank you, Anoop, for your wisdom. And I think this is a fascinating conversation. I am a WeBank, a certified woman-owned business. And I sought to bring the concept of ecosystem to WeBank last year. Actually started in 2021 because found that many enterprise organizations were less likely to work with a smaller company, even if it was woman-owned and they were seeking to meet diversity requirements. So I went to other women-owned businesses in the tech space who have different areas of focus and suggested that we create a formal ecosystem between us, which we did. It's called the Power Women Alliance, powerwomenalliance.org. And what you said just now is exactly what happened. Not only did we build trust, and part of that happened over time, having bi-weekly calls together to talk about framework and strategy, but also we made an agreement that we then formalized between us with a partnering agreement regarding which products and services we would bring to market, because although we really came from different perspectives, there was overlap. And one partner in particular and I had some areas where there could be direct competition. So we decided, I'll do this and you do that. And so far, it's worked great. But it really has taken time and intention, and then some governance in terms of conversations that resulted in actual documentation to support it, so we wouldn't forget down the road.
Congratulations, Nancy. I think that's good. That's good to hear. And the other thing I would say, by the way, when you have a collective group of organizations, is actually set out the principles of the relationship. And I'm being deliberate in my words here. Principles of the relationship as opposed to principles of the partnership, right? And the principles of the relationship are how are we going to behave with each other? How are we going to build up trust with each other? Understanding that we have our own businesses and own things that we need to get on with, etc. So being cognizant of that, if that makes sense, but being respectful of that as well. So that you set up kind of the principles of the relationship, because this is about a relationship, right? And then that allows you then to actually say, if something happens, you call out the relationship aspects of it and fix that problem, because then the rest of it should work, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The strength of relationship is what empowers you to actually do the work of the alliance.
Correct.
My
Your oxygen mask first, right?
Yeah.
Anoop, you've heard my acronym for trust, right? Transparency for T.
Yes.
R is relationship. U is for understanding. S is shared success, and T is testing assumptions.
Love it. Love it.
And using all those as a guidepost.
Correct.
Gary, can you put that into chat?
Yeah, absolutely. So
while
what's
Gary
the
is
next?
doing that, I just want to say congrats to Nancy for that alliance.
Yeah, well done.
I love the acronym. How?
Thank you. Yeah.
Easier said than done.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And to Anoop's point, takes a powerful amount of trust between the partners to make that work.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, to be honest, Norma, as folks will see from what I've got up there, the Alliance Accelerator is the brand of an alliance between myself and my partner in the Netherlands. We have no contract, no agreement between us in any way, shape, or form. Nothing. It's purely based on trust. And it works a dream.
You've been working with him for how long now, with Peter?
I've known him since 2009. I've been working in terms of the alliance with him since 2018, I think it is. Yeah.
Well,
So-
having known both of you for over 10 something years, even, 11
Yep.
years, 12 years, I would say that you're both very trustworthy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just kind of the point, to create trust, you have to be trustworthy. You have to start.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So not fifth step. What is it? 1, 2,
We're
3.
delivering seamless experience.
Yes.
Delivering a
Yeah.
seamless experience. In fact, we have the speaker for that session, which was innovation and delivery. Claudia is with us. So Claudia, you're welcome to chime in with your perspective as well. So we want to get as many voices as we can in this conversation.
Yes, yeah, my pleasure. It was interesting to hear the whole trust dimension, right? Because that is a critical part to any relationship, is just building that trust and maintaining that trust. And I think, as Alliance executives work in the field, and I know I work across our teams to provide oversight, we have to rely on those teams and then, the people across our firm to maintain that trust, right, as they're working with clients. And, what I really enjoy about working here at Protiviti is that we have our values of integrity, inclusion, and innovation that are embedded in our culture. And so I think that's the place you have to start, right?
Right. Correct. Totally agreed.
And then, that manifests itself, throughout the people. And actually, when I first came aboard Protiviti, I was interviewing with our chief culture officer. And I asked her, I said, what really differentiates, Protiviti from any other, global consultancy? And she very frankly said, we put our people first. And I have to say that, having been here now a little over 3 years, that I've sort of lived and breathed that, that also is the transparency of their culture, that they do put their people first. Of course, we're in a people business, right?
Yes.
So it makes sense to put people first. But I was stricken by that, because she said the logic and the reasoning behind it is that is going to transcend out to our customers. And I see it more and more so, as we have more loyal customers as well. So I think when we frame up trust, we have to start culturally, and ensure that the cultures are aligned. And I know we do a lot of that in our vetting of new relationships. And we're actually, putting a new process in place around a new relationship where, we want to see the teams working together in the field first before we actually go to a contract. Getting back to some of the earlier comments around, we don't even have an agreement in place. We just work so well together and so seamlessly together. And I think that also helps, getting to the topic of this webinar, to build more of those transformational types of opportunities working with our clients. Because what's better than going in with a business partner that also has, either a footprint in the account or is looking to build a relationship in that account. And you're working side by side, but that's also seamless to the customer, because as was mentioned earlier, the customer is at the center. Without it, there is no ecosystem, right? So, all of these things sort of play together. And, what Nancy was saying earlier as well is, sometimes you do have to sit down at the table and sort of iron out, what the rules of engagement are and what the roles and responsibility are. We just are coming to full circle with a new relationship. And it took us about a year, to work through all of that and to really, give clear visibility, line of visibility into who would be doing what. And that really strengthens the value, again, that we're delivering to the client, because there's clear lines of distinction between what each person is doing. And therefore, we can go in holistically and service that client, but as we were almost a unified team, so there's no, it's music to my ears when clients say, Protiviti worked with a business partner and it was like, it was seamless. There was no distinction between the two. So having all of that in place is incredibly important. That governance framework does take some time to flesh out and build. But when you're thinking about it, as you enter into a new relationship, you do want to make sure that, you're checking those boxes, you're having those conversations. In our case, we had a whole spreadsheet that sort of outlined all the roles and responsibilities a little bit more clearly, so that when it came to implementations, we had that all ironed out, working very closely with our partner.
I think that works really well, Claudia, because you're in front of a client. If you're seen as the client looks at the organizations and doesn't know who is who in terms of which company, you're seen as one, you're seen as a we, and I come back to the wording of this, you're seen as we. That's brilliant. That's what needs to happen. Yeah. And that's how you would deliver a seamless experience in many ways. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and the relationship is kind of critical within that.
I had an interesting experience at a workshop I delivered in Australia, and this was this bunch of construction companies. And one thing that the government of Australia does when they let out a large infrastructure bid is that no one can deliver these big projects alone in Australia. They always demand that you alliance, this they call alliancing.
Yep.
So you have to do these bids as multiple, and most big construction companies contracts are multiple bidders, right? Multiple companies. But during the call process, they would actually give a problem to solve to the bidding team. And what they were evaluating was not so much whether you solve the problem, but how well you work together in solving the problem. That was part of the bid selection, was how well you partnered and how well you solve problems together.
Yeah, that's interesting. That whole team dynamic, coming into play. Yeah, that's incredibly important.
It is to achieve that customer success, to achieve that seamless experience. I think you need to kind of do that. And in some cases you'll get one company that is stronger on kind of leading the project or leading the solution, etc. But again, you've got to be seen as kind of together, and behind it's kind of behind the scenes. One organization can be seen to lead, etc. When you're in front of the client or in front of the set of clients or whatever, I think it's important to be seen as being really joined at the hip.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah.
We have a question in the chat. Do you offer any partner incentive programs? If so, what makes them successful?
Partner incentive programs. Repeat that again, Gary. If you offer partner
Do
incentive
you offer any partner incentive programs? If so, what makes them successful? This is from Jen.
Good question. Go on.
Kind of in the context of a partner program. Is
Probably. Jen, you want to clarify for us, or I'm thinking that it's when they bring in referrals, when they bring you referrals.
okay?
So source leads or types of that nature. How do you incentivize partners? I think is the question.
I think it depends, doesn't it? I mean, you should be incentivizing them, no question about it, because otherwise, why would they do it? It's a question of what makes sense in terms of incentivizing them, such that if they're an organized, if they're bringing in referrals or whatever, you don't want to stop that, right? So you've got to incentivize them, make it worth their while. I say it depends. It depends on the organizations, right?
And I think it's very different whether you're talking about a programmatic partner model or when you're talking about, strategic alliances, where the incentive there is winning, because you each have your own revenue streams that come out of that opportunity, versus in a programmatic way when you're dealing with, a volume of partners where there might be incentives paid out, percentage of revenue paid out to a referral, or, other incentives.
And Norma, I would actually say in a partner program, in a programmatic type approach, agreed, when you have lots of partners, etc., having an incentive scheme like that would work. I think in an alliance, quite frankly, does an incentive scheme necessarily work? It shouldn't do, because the whole idea about the alliance is you're actually bringing complementary capabilities of two organizations, etc., to drive value for all, right? So it shouldn't necessarily be based on referrals.
No, the payoff there is that you win the deal and you have your own revenue stream, right? So if a product company or platform company partners with an SI, the SI gets services and the platform company gets license.
Correct, but it's a joined up solution, right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's a joint solution.
Yeah.
But I
Now,
think
one thing that I can add really quick, and on the flip side of that is, in our organization, we have put together an incentive program around training and certification, so that our people are incented to get higher levels of certifications. And so, that we realize at the time that they need to invest in this, but also it gives them the autonomy to really develop their careers and gain the skill sets that are relevant in the marketplace.
so this is internal.
Yes, correct. Yep. So I've been part of that exercise since I began here at Protiviti, and continue to really see, better outcomes, as we evolve the program.
That's actually pretty innovative. I've not known other companies to do that. I've seen that platform companies will incent companies who get certifications product, but never that an SI, which makes sense because you're selling expertise at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you incentivize them, and do you have a list of certifications?
Yep. So we have a list of certifications, and we work closely with our alliance leadership teams to develop those. And then those certifications, they get reviewed on an annual basis. And then there's a bonus structure tied to that. So if they complete, the higher the levels, the higher the bonus structure, of certification or expertise. So that has really helped us, incent people. And again, I equate it to when I was doing my master's work, right? I had to put a lot of time and effort into that, my own time and effort. But at the end of the day, it was investing in myself and in my career.
Yeah.
So, it just helped me as I was, on my career journey. So, but I think what's often not realized, especially in a people firm or an SI, is that developing these skills is really, your time investment, but it's usually all paid for by the company or the partner. So in most cases, right. And so getting those skills is going to help you, to remain marketable, in the marketplace and relevant, so we try to really, push that forward, especially within our university recruiting as well, and our new consultants coming in, that, hey, you have a lot of opportunity ahead of you to really build the skills and the knowledge base, and you just have to understand from your perspective is where your strengths are and where you want to build on those strengths in terms of your delivery capabilities.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of development occur within organizations where the upskilling and reskilling focus has come into play, not only with employees, but also with key partners, because of, as you mentioned at the start of this call, the whole talent war situation that's been happening, and the fact that it's very difficult to attract and retain good people. And so, that is an incentive today to make sure that not only your employees, but your partners have the latest opportunity to learn and gain more skills through your organization or through the two of you collaborating together.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
huge retention strategy too.
Yeah.
It
Is. Mhm.
matters if you're investing in them. All
But
right.
to go back to the original question for Jen, I
Sorry,
think that
didn't mean to
illustrates,
interrupt. Yeah.
I think that illustrates how varied the answer is to your
Mhm.
question.
Yeah.
Because, it really depends on who are you looking to incentivize? And even, going back to the referral piece, to Norma's point, I come from the traditional channel side of the equation, which was always about, providing compensation financially for referrals. But even from that standpoint, there's a lot of different programs, that can be provided today. And we find that, even in the traditional channel, more and more partners are interested in compensation beyond money. So it's really developing and changing right now.
Yes.
Interesting.
Great point. Norma, you want to move on to the customer success?
Sure. Customer success. One of the things that I like to point out that Microsoft, which is, arguably the largest and most progressive partner ecosystem on the planet, has completely revamped their system, and it's changed to a point system that rewards customer success.
Mhm.
It's really kind of interesting what they're doing there. But I think more and more, particularly, as we look at our partner ecosystems, partners are a big part of that partner customer experience. Nancy and I just did some research on that, but they're a big part of the aftermath. It's more than just winning the deal and going live. It is the care and feeding and nurturing of the customer along the way. So
It's a long game, isn't it, Norma?
yeah, it's the long game.
Yeah.
And you want to expound a little bit on that?
Yeah, and I'd actually expand more on that, Norma. And I think we've seen this even with the likes of Google. Google, not such a long time ago, just a short while ago, I think a few months ago, actually has said they want every bit of their business, Google Cloud I'm talking about, they want every bit of their business to go through partners, right?
100% attach. It's not
Absolutely.
by the way, they're not selling. I did 5 years of helping them build that program. So
right. Yeah. So there's Google, and then I'm hearing with the AWS reInvent program that's going on right now, which I probably just finished, right, in the US. All they're talking about is everything going through partners for the customers. So they're focused on customer success and saying everything has to go through partners. Yeah. So they're doing the same as well. And I think they recognize that. We've seen IBM doing the same thing, etc. So there's a big recognition now that actually to achieve customer success, they have to go through partners. They've got to do it in the right way. Yeah. And what's interesting as well, I just recently saw a bit of Accenture research as well that came out that said that actually what those customers, those organizations that are going to become the most successful, who are going to leapfrog and be leaders, are those that actually embrace the whole partnering in the ecosystem piece, because they can develop the right kind of solutions and deliver the right kind of solutions to achieve customer success, because customers are demanding that now. So it's quite interesting to see everything is pointing towards that. And that's really how organizations need to grow their business. Yeah. Partnering is absolutely the right way forward in order to be able to do that.
So Anoop, you referenced an Accenture report. Can we pull that off of their website or?
I saw it posted by the lead of Accenture UK, and it was titled Accenture Research. So I can dig it out and I can send the link in, etc. But I only saw it yesterday, so forgive me for it. But it was quite interesting to see that. But they talked about leaders and laggards, and I've seen that leaders and laggards before in other advisory reports, but they talked about leapfrogging as well. And it's more around how through partnering and actually innovating through the partnerships, innovating for the customers, you can actually leapfrog and actually stay relevant for the customers.
Wow.
That's
love to read
the
that.
system play.
Yep.
If you can send me that link, I'll post it to the P2P page, the event.
Yes.
so
Yeah,
everyone
I will.
can
I will
access
do
it.
that.
Anoop, what do you think? Is it a study like this that got these guys to decide after all these years, by the way, that going through partners is a better way to go? I mean, you know, alliances, channels, all that have been around. I mean, alliances have been around for a while. Channels have been around since the early 80s.
Sure.
Yep.
You're talking like 40 years. So what do you think? The pandemic? What do you think has prompted them?
Several things. So I think before the pandemic, I think the whole digital transformation piece is the first thing that kind of kicked it off. And you know, the thing about, so before we hit the pandemic, a lot of organizations tried to go down the digital transformation route, and I think I saw something that actually said 80% of the companies that were trying to go through digital transformation were failing, right? Because they were trying to do things themselves. And it's before the pandemic kicked in that they recognized that actually the way they are going to have to do it, and it's the word is interesting, the way they're going to have to do it is through alliances and partnerships. They recognize that they need to do that. And then came along the pandemic. So I again, the digital transformation piece I see as pretty much like a tsunami heading towards you, right? And then the pandemic kicked in, and the pandemic is like a meteor hitting the tsunami, which means it puts the tsunami on steroids, right? It's actually driving faster, bigger towards you. And it just basically said, because the pandemic changed the way customers wanted to interact with organizations, and they recognized they had to do it in a much more digital manner. So organizations had to change. So it's just forced organizations to go about doing it. But the challenge is, if they don't know how to go about doing it, they think partnering is all about, we can do it. We just need to go and partner with organizations and it'll work. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. And we are, you know, we know this, Didi, right? You have to know what you're doing from a framework perspective, from a tools perspective, from a mindset perspective, etc. All of that has to come together. And the challenge is culture, all of that. And unfortunately, it's still not coming together for a lot of organizations. And that's why these studies are coming out. These studies are actually saying that the leading companies are bringing it together and they're racing away, but the laggards who are just staying put and not doing very much about it, they're going to get left behind and they're going to become irrelevant, right? So there's recognition now, companies need to go in that direction. And I've seen that from numerous advisory reports. I mean, McKinsey's, the Bains, the BCGs, the Deloittes, the Accentures, PwCs, they're all saying it. They're all going in the same direction. They're saying the same thing. In fact, there's one report which I saw which horrified me from Bain, which basically said they treat alliance and partnering as an extension to M&A, which I totally disagree with, by the way. Totally disagree with. Yeah, but anyway.
So Norma, I want to tie this together. How do you tie it all together? We're looking at the 5 steps that we outlined, and it sort of comes in with what you're talking about. How do you ensure nothing falls between the cracks, and what can organizations do?
Okay, so you have to start with the customer first of all. You have to recognize and understand that the customer's needs have to be central for what you do. So find what that customer value is that you're trying to create, and that the need is, right? Build value with the partner for the customer and build it with trust. Trust is going to be absolutely central to what you're doing, because it's a relationship-based business. And I've heard things where people say, well, can you build an alliance or a partnership or an ecosystem without trust? And I would say, hell no. No way. No way. So you need trust at the very, very center of what you do in building that value. You've got to continuously look at how you measure and deliver that value. And I think the interesting thing is, there's a lot of people I speak to talk about measuring value, and they measure it from the tangible perspective. They measure it by revenues and profits, etc. I actually challenge them to say, think way beyond that, right? Because revenues and profitability is one measure of the value, but it's not the value in itself. There are many other forms of value you need to be thinking about, both tangible and intangible, and particularly so. And I see that a lot within the technology space. You look at the whole ESG agenda, right? You have technology companies who are coming together to deliver sustainable solutions. Ask them the question: are you measuring that based on revenues? Are you measuring it based on solutions that help customers drive their net zero carbon emissions down, etc.? And I bet you it's the latter, right?
Mhm.
And then think about relationships and trust level. It's a continuous process. It's not a one-hit wonder, right? So you need to continuously look at your trust levels, measure trust. And by the way, trust is an absolute measurement. And I read someone which makes complete sense. Trust is actually your single biggest asset today, right? So why don't you measure it, right? It's a KPI that you absolutely have to measure. Yeah. So they're kind of, when you look at these 5 different steps, etc., you need to look at that process of how you achieve that success. Yeah. And you come back to the trust piece, etc. And I want to give you an example of my time at Nokia. I was brought into a relationship which was void of trust completely. And that was between Nokia and a massive technology company in the US. Void of trust, lots of ego in it, 2 big gorillas trying to dance, couldn't do anything together, right? I changed the dynamics of it, and I actually started with trust. I built trust internally within my organization, first of all. So I had the stakeholders trusting me, I had the executive sponsor trusting me, and then I built trust with the partner. And believe you me, after we did that, we created new net revenues, new net value of at least 30 million euros within 1 year. Yeah. But what happened after then is Nokia's strategy changed, and Nokia decided we're going to compete with this partner. So it actually undid every bit of trust that I developed with this particular partner, where we distrusted each other completely. And I hate to say it, it's one of these things that I think actually destroyed Nokia as an organization. So to me, trust was kind of critical. Yeah. But there were other things as well that destroyed the organization. So I think that's what you need to do. I think trust is something you need to look at. The relationship is something you need to look at. It helps make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, because if you have a really good relationship and you're in constant communication with your partner, with people internally, you can actually even if things do fall through the cracks, you can bring it up. You can try and help it from that perspective.
That's fantastic. We're coming to the end, and I want to make sure that people have a chance to ask questions. If you have questions, put in a chat or raise your hand. But as we wait for people, Anoop, what do you see as the future of B2B partnerships and collaboration?
I guess it's going to be skewed. I see it as massive. I see it absolutely huge. I'm an advocate beyond belief that tomorrow's business and business for even after tomorrow has got to be based on partnerships. That's the way we've got to go forward. We're in a very complex economic environment with all sorts of things going on with recession, etc., but with technology and all that kind of stuff. You need to be able to work with partners and collaborate, because you're never going to be able to do it on your own. Even M&A is not going to help necessarily solve your problem. So I think partnerships, alliances, ecosystems are absolutely the way forward. It is the future. And
So
it's not just me. It's not just me saying it. All the advisory reports are saying the same thing as well.
fantastic. So I have a question from Nancy, and that is, how do you measure trust as a tangible asset metric or KPI?
Okay, so it's an interesting question, Nancy. I saw a formula for trust, and it's not my formula. I think it's from Trusted Leaders. I think it is, or Trusted Edge. I think and you have 4 components in it. So it's credibility, reliability, and intimacy over self-interest. And people say, well, it's a formula. What I did is I said, right, in order to look at that, I asked my partner to measure me based on those 4 elements and score me between 1 and 5 in each one of those elements. And I'd come up with a figure, or they'd come up with a figure, right? I would do the same with my partner. And we do it not just as partner to partner, we do it team to team and senior leaders to senior leaders, etc. Now, the important thing is that it brought out to me, we looked at areas where we were weak in the score, but also what we were able to do is measure that moving forward. Were we improving quarter on quarter on quarter? And if we were, how did that then also translate into the financial metrics that we were achieving as well with that partner? Yeah. For me, the most important element of that trust quotient was the self-interest, self-orientation. And that was, if you're very focused on yourself from an ego perspective, etc., your self-orientation would be very high, and therefore your trust quotient would be very, very low. And that's one of the key things that you need to kind of address. How do we change from being it's all about me to it's all about we? Yeah. But you can measure it. It's hypothetical, but you can measure it, but you can monitor it. And I think that's the most important thing. Yeah. It's not the actual value, but it's actually where that's moving. That's the right thing to do. And I did that with my alliance partners, and my goodness me, the executives who looked at that said, wow, that's new. Yeah. And they really, really liked it. They turned their attention on it because they could see the benefits of doing it. So hopefully I answered that question, Nancy. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Anoop. Hey, so we got 3 minutes left, and I want to make sure Dee Dee has her chance to talk about the rest of the slides. Anoop, do you have any closing remarks for us?
My closing remark is you got to go ahead and partner. Don't, go ahead, but do it in the right way. Okay. Make sure you do it in the right way. It's critically important. Make sure you also have the right culture and right attitude and mindset to do it properly. And think of the long term. Think of the long game. That's what this is all about.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Thank you, Anoop.
So thanks to everybody. We just have a couple bits of information that are important. One is that Anoop and Peter are giving an offer to register for their Alliance Masterclass at alliancemasterclass.com, and they can get a 10% discount using that code P2P-AMC, and that's valid until the end of December. So please use that if you have an interest in getting into their Alliance Masterclass. And also, if you have any questions for Anoop, his email and his phone number are there.
And I've posted those into chat, so if you want to take them from there.
Norma just put them in chat. And also, if you want to continue the discussion at all, P2P collaboration at gmail.com and collaboration1@gmail.com if you want to continue with the discussion with us. And one other thing is that all of these series, these episodes are on our YouTube channel. So, and I'll be posting, I'm going to post all the presentation decks up on the P2P or the partner to partner collaboration LinkedIn page. So you'll have all of these. So I will be putting them up there. And then we did have 7 episodes, but we're showing 6 here. We had an introduction in May. But these were all the webinars that we had gone through and with the recap. And thank you so much, Anoop.
Pleasure.
Great. Absolutely fabulous.
Pleasure.
Thank you to everybody who has joined us for this. We do appreciate it. And there will be videos of these. We did record it. We are recording it. That'll be available. It'll be up on the, it'll be in various places, but also up on that YouTube channel. So with that, thank you, everybody, and happy upcoming holidays.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Take
very
Happy,
care.
happy holidays. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Norma. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Dee Dee. Good
Thanks
night.
for
Thanks,
joining,
Nancy.
everybody.